everyone, and welcome to the April edition of the Advocate's Voice Sunday Sessions. As you know, we are going to be discussing data, statistics, and I'm going to bring the ladies in. We're going to have Lindsey speaking mostly. So let me introduce Lindsey. Hello, Lindsey.
Hello, people.
Hey.
Hey.
And then I will bring in Liana. Hi, Liana.
Hello, Big Fam.
And last but not least, our favorite kind person, Miss Skip. Hi, Skip.
Hi, everybody.
How's everybody doing?
Good.
Fantastic.
Good.
This is a good way to end the week. Bunch of ladies together.
Or start the week for me. But yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, just so everybody out there knows, oh God, my camera's doing that crazy thing again. Sorry, I don't know
It's
how to
really
stop
cool that it does that. I was like, how is she doing that? Like her camera's automatically zooming in on her.
The webcam. It's this thing, this webcam.
That
I got.
Bloomberg
Anyway,
bucks, huh?
Yeah. All that big tobacco money I have a fancy webcam. Yeah. So for today, like I said, we're going to be discussing statistics and data and what is important data. And I am going to hand the floor over to you, Lindsey, if you're ready for it.
Yeah, and I'm kind of flying off the seat of my pants. We were going to give a presentation to you guys, but we really kind of want to keep this pretty short and brief and everything. So, okay, everybody's talking about youth vaping. In case you missed it, the FDA is no longer using the term epidemic to describe youth vaping because it's decreased. And how has it decreased? Well, in 2019, 20% of U.S. Middle and high school students were using e-cigarettes. In 2022, it was 9.4%. So we went from 1 in 5 kids using this to less than 1 in 10 using them last year. But here's the numbers that you're not getting. In 2021, there were 17.3 million adult vapors. And I got that number doing the CDC data with the Behavioral Risk Factor Surveillance System survey. It's the same data that Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids wants to use when they point out the percentage of adults that are smoking. This is a huge increase. Actually, the CDC only gives you data nationally from 2016, 2017, and then 2021. So when I'm going to the 2017 data, it's actually a 45% increase, which is good news. This is where we need more data, though. I've been breaking it down, going state by state. I don't have the numbers in front of me, and I won't be on this 50-state analysis, but as Skip knows, and she's going to be helping me with that, we're going to turn around and do another analysis at TPA where it's adult vaping, kids vaping, once the CDC actually gets their youth risk numbers out. But we need more data on these adult vapors and these adults that are using it. I know I'm going to extrapolate the data because I was sitting there thinking in my head, it's got to be a lot of 18 to 24-year-olds, but actually with some of the states that I was looking at, yeah, the percentage of 18 to 24-year-olds, yeah, they use vapes a lot more, but it was actually like the 35 to 44-year-olds that made up the most, the highest percentage of vapors in the state of all those vapors. And I think that's really good data to use and just getting out of this kids, it's kids, and this whole an entire generation addicted to nicotine and everything, and bringing back the power to the consumer. One of the reasons why I fell in love with vaping and why it's not big tobacco, and I have to tell all these rednecks down here in Florida, is like big tobacco was forced to change their product portfolio because of the consumers. They didn't start just making e-cigarettes. They're now buying up e-cigarettes, which is all more powerful, but you have to make sure that you're getting these stories out there. And then it goes back to everybody has seen the Shawshank Redemption. And I've been saying it for years. I'm a former staffer. I've worked with lawmakers. You have to be persistent. It can be tiresome and weary, and you can get, well, they didn't respond to me and everything. But Andy Dufresne and Shawshank Redemption, goes to the warden and wants, hey, can I write to my lawmakers to give us money for this library? And the warden's like, yeah, good luck with that. They ain't giving any money out to the prisoners unless it's to put, more shackles on you. So he writes for 2 years and he finally gets $500 and they're like, please leave us alone. And his response is, I'm going to write 2 letters a week. And that's what you have to do. Be there. They are your lawmakers. Don't feel guilty by contacting them. They need to hear from you. Right now, they're hearing every other day from not people who are not their constituents. Did I do?
Well, let me ask. Yeah, let me ask you something though. I mean, a lot of I know I've dealt with a lot of people that are almost afraid. Let's just say, okay, they're afraid of using the data and the statistics, and alternatively, they don't understand the power of the data that they have because like, oh, we're worried about these statistics and we need to use this. Yeah, you do, but the most important data that you have is your story.
Yes.
And a lot of advocates, consumers, not so much the advocates, but consumers, okay, get so wrapped up in all the science and all the technical stuff. And it's like, no, wait a minute, time out. The most powerful data that we have is your story. So because I know that you've spent a lot of time going and doing these presentations and giving testimony at all of these legislative affairs things, okay, what would you say is the best way for consumers to get that story to those people that need to hear it?
First, like clearly state your name, where you're from, so they can establish whether you're a constituent or not. And bullet points. I mean, I had a lawmaker tell me years ago that we love bullet points, and my response to him was like, if only I could write things in crayon for you people, you'd actually read all of it. But yeah, they want it. Vaping is very passionate for us, but these lawmakers have a bunch of other issues that they're dealing with and stuff. So you need to be, what is your message? And it needs to be boom on there. Me and Skip, when we came up with the Golden Oldie script, I think is one of the better ones to use. My name is, I'm from city, state, or, in the various countries that you're in. I'm blank years old. I smoked for blank years. I quit smoking blank years ago using blank flavor. Wave around your vape and move on. And then maybe submit a more personal story on their own time that they can like read. But yeah, definitely just like getting the fact out that you're like an older person that smoked for over 20 years and that you use a non-tobacco flavored. I think those are the things that you should be doing when you're writing to the people who, I don't think you should be taking in your testimony as a consumer and regurgitating Public Health England. There's enough people at the think tank world or, the consumer the organizations or the trade organizations that are already giving that data to the lawmakers. As you said, you are more powerful with your own testimony. You are you're the counterpart to that little kid that they're getting there sitting here saying, everybody in my school is vaping. Here are you. Nope. I'm the 50-plus-year-old that finally quit smoking 30 years later using unicorn poop flavored vaping.
Unicorn poop.
Sorry, I have to always drop that one. Okay.
I know. It's just so insane. Well, I mean, but still, as part of that, because, we are, and I'm going to try to articulate this the right way. I probably don't have enough coffee in me, but we are part of the statistics. And the thing that I don't understand, and maybe you have an answer for this, is, when they're talking about data and statistics, and like you said, they're focusing on youth. And you're going to bring up this report about adults versus youth. A lot of countries and a lot of states, I'm presuming, I know countries, I don't know about states, but they don't track that with adults. They don't say, okay,
no,
well,
they don't.
Do you vape?
America, that's the only thing I'll sit here and say that's good about the CDC is their behavioral risk factor surveillance system survey. Is because I looked at it to go find adult, even tobacco numbers is really hard to find in some places of the world.
So that, in a way, I would think, talking with my hands again, my inner Sicilian's
I've been talking with my hands the whole time, and you can't even see them because of the blurry
stuff.
stuff.
In a way, do you think that sort of invalidates their arguments because they're harping so much on youth that they don't even consider the adult?
Well, yeah, I think it does in America. I mean, 2020. Okay, so we don't have 2022 numbers for adult e-cigarette users, but in 2021, it was 17.3 million adult e-cigarette users compared to the 2.5 million kid users. And we're so focused on those 2.5 million kids, but we're not concerned about those 17.3 million adults or even what really sucks too on our surveys is that we can't gauge whether these are former smokers or former people who smoked. Sorry, Skip. That if they've actually used these products to quit smoking, you can't. There is no way. I mean, you can kind of infer with the data, but it's not like an actual survey question.
So do you think that it would be beneficial perhaps if one of the think tanks or consumer organizations actually got on board and did this and got the stats? I mean, of course they're going to say, oh, that's not scientific and peer reviewed, blah, 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 the usual BS. But
I would love for an organization just to get the grant to do that. There's so much grants that go out from the FDA and the CDC to do stuff like that. I know, look, I don't think we could do it at my organization as a 501c3. But there's some ways, I know some organizations could be doing this. The problem is that you're seeing with some of these, what you're seeing with all these studies that are coming out. I mean, okay, now it's rant time. Skip already got it on Thursday morning. I wrote the blog piece. The state departments are hiding youth data. I thought it was just the CDC, but I sat there. The Vermont Health Department is literally like every single time you go to that page, it's like, oh, it's going to be another day. I mean, back in September, I looked at their page. Their youth risk behavior survey data was supposed to be published in like November of 2022. Here comes November. Oh, we're going to get it to you in December. Here comes January. And it's like, oh, sometime later. And then it's like late March. And then they finally like updated the page this week. We're going to get it to you sometime in spring. Connecticut recently published their youth risk behavior survey summary. It's not it doesn't have the entirety of it. And they actually, in their questionnaire, they asked, what is the main reason why you use e-cigarettes? And I was really looking forward to seeing what the responses were, because they included the whole self-medicating for, feelings of anxiety, stress, depression. But in their summary, the only thing that they give us is the percentage of youth that had cited using them because they were curious, which is 8.1%. And then you turn to the next page and it's like, and 90% of kids who used a tobacco product used a flavored one. I'm so mad at state health departments because they don't want to have a tin hat on my head. But at the same time, you're sitting here advocating for banning flavors and you're hiding all of this data. And if you actually go to the Connecticut Health Department public testimony for the bill for this year, they don't talk anything about the Connecticut youth numbers.
Here's the thing.
So F them. I'm being really proper right now, but F those people, F the state health departments. I'm so mad.
All you have to say is they can self-fornicate, and then you've kind of solved that problem. Here's another thing, and this is something that I don't think is taken into consideration either, and it ties into the other work that you're doing is, in some of the surveys that we've seen around the world, I don't think this was in the States, but some of the surveys, they were saying, why do you use nicotine? And a lot of those kids are saying they use nicotine, they're self-medicating.
Yeah.
I mean, and I can think about when, back in the dark ages when I used to smoke, when I was a teenager, before I was legal to do it. I know that, it's, and I do it now, it's a habit, yes, but also, to focus, also to kind of calm me down, things like that. There is, and it does tie into what we're doing, there is a major issue right now in the world with youth mental health. And that is evidenced in a lot of, yes, it's nicotine use, but also the fentanyl issue and the other drugs issue. So do you think that maybe they're trying to obfuscate the data on vaping because they don't want to deal with the bigger issue?
Well, I think they dropped the ball on the bigger issue. I mean, the youth risk behavior stuff, they asked, one of the questions is, persistent feelings of sadness or hopelessness or whatnot. And it's 42% of kids, I guess, and for the 2021 highest level recorded. It's a jump from 2019 there, but it's been increasing since 2011. It's not social media. It's not like, I don't know exactly what it is, but there is something going on with the kids. And I don't think it's social media. I don't think it's nicotine vaping. I think that there's been a lot of things though that have distracted the kids, I guess, and distracted the parents, if you like, so to speak, on oh, my kid's vaping, where it's like, no, your kid really feels like crap. And that's like a fundamental, like they feel that deep down. And like there's going to take a lot more than a nick hit to make them feel better. And this is what
Yeah,
I don't
no.
get too. If you look at these numbers, and I still need to figure out the numbers, especially in the US, you've had this increase in disposables, yet youth vaping went down. So you have more products on the market, yet vaping is decreasing. So the whole argument, I mean, I'm so sick of the whole youth vaping epidemic. And I wish that Brian King would actually go on the radio and like blare it, so Campaign for Tobacco Free Kids can get this freaking memo. Because I'm so sick of hearing this term. It
I
makes
think
no
that the
sense
reason
on any of it.
it doesn't make logical sense, but it does make sense if you look at it from the perspective of these people are trying to maintain their relevance and they're trying to maintain their funding stream. So they're going to create a problem where it doesn't exist, or they're going to amplify an issue to create it in a bigger problem to justify their existence. I mean, if you look as well, I mean, look at recently I'm going to bring up Australia. I hate to bring up Australia, but I'm going to bring up Australia. Okay. If you look at what's going on there, and this happened in the States as well, and it's happened in other countries, is you've got these public health people and they're scared. I mean, Tom said they're running scared, right? They're so freaked out that they throw out all of this, they throw out disinformation or misinformation. They throw out accusations. They do all of these things that are just not something that any of us would actually consider doing because we're all about the truth. But it doesn't matter. And I think that they've gotten so twisted inside, okay, that they'll do and say anything or obfuscate data or hide data, okay, to maintain the shtick that they're running on, okay?
Never
But
let a
here's
good
the
crisis
problem.
go to waste.
Right. Okay. And I mean, but the problem with that, of course, and it's a short term, it's reactionary as opposed to proactive, right? So the long term problem of that is that the problem still exists in the background, and they're just going to balloon up and get worse and worse and worse. And then what happens? Do you see what I'm saying? So I think the reason they're focusing so much on youth vaping is because youth vaping is such a small
It's
part
the only thing
of
they
the
have.
actual
It's
issue.
honestly the only thing they have. They don't have blowing. You don't have, people's faces being blown up anymore or whatever, even with the mods and everything and the batteries
Yeah.
exploding because that happened like 5 freaking times and stuff. They don't have that this is more harmful. They don't have we're going to have more people who smoke. I mean, that's the only thing they have right now. I mean, vaping, kids. All of the data right now shows you that vaping is safer. Nobody's dying, and disposables. I mean, it would be great if disposables actually did blow up in people's faces. That would be a fun public. That would be fun to watch that
You know,
one.
I'm waiting for something like that because allegedly some people are actually taking the disposables and trying to recharge those batteries.
Well, you can recharge some of the disposables, which once
Some, but
again,
not
that's
all.
a stupid thing. Like I thought it was disposable. Why am I recharging it? And I got somebody telling me about, I can use them longer, and I'm like, I don't know if you want to use that coil longer, but disposables don't have a place. Like my whole family, my cousins and stuff, they all quit smoking last year using disposables. I had to really
I think
refrain from like giving them a riot act on, like there's a cheaper way for you to do this than doing this one. But as long as they're not smoking, that's fine. I mean,
but then we went over this the last time. The issue with the disposables more, and this is what they're using as well. Again, any excuse or any reason, right? So now they're using the environmental aspect of disposables thrown on the street and stuff. I mean, I think Mark and I saw maybe one last week, and I was like, oh my God, it wasn't even a proper disposable. It was a pod. Somebody tossed a pod in the street, right?
I'm beginning to think that some of those things I see on TikTok, that those people are literally gathering up disposables and throwing them in one place to film it.
That's what we were talking about. Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
It's like the fake ghost videos, which I watch on YouTube all the time. Fake or real. Most of them are fake.
Your life. I want to hear from Skip. Skip, what's your take on all of this?
I just wanted to touch back on the charging of disposables. Some of them apart, opening them up and hooking wires to them to try to charge them, which might not be a safe thing to do. And I think we will eventually see news reports of people exploding a battery because it wasn't charged the right way. I totally lost my train of thought. Oh, I sent you a message. When we're talking about our youth and the rising mental health concerns, that is drastically going up in the United States. And I just read a Twitter thread the other day about the decrease in life expectancy in the United States. And that study that the gentleman was citing said that 1 out of 5 American youth will probably die before the age of 40. And part of that is from mental health issues. Part of it is from things like the mass shootings, fentanyl poisonings, health effects from obesity, etc. And I think that we have too much of an unbalanced focus on kids vaping, and we're really not paying attention to how much our kids are hurting, and those kids are suffering the consequences.
And I
That
think
should
they're
be our
doing
new
it on
buzzword,
purpose.
by the way. Unbalanced focus.
Unbalanced focus. I mean, and I think that's what I was trying to articulate badly before, is that I think that the reason they're focusing on the vaping is because they don't want to deal with the bigger issue. I saw that thread too, something about, the average American lifespan is worse than the poorest town in the UK. And I was just like,
Yes.
Well, I saw the data too. The data point, like 18 to 44-year-olds in America are more likely to die from an overdose than anything else, or an accidental death.
Mm-hmm. Well, that brings something else up. I mean, I know this, we usually talk about vape, but I want to ask you, because you do know all this stuff, Lindsey. I remember when I still lived there, almost 20 years ago, there was the issue of the drugs, like in the Appalachians and stuff. And I'm not sure if it was fentanyl or not at that point. I think it might have been meth, but
No, it was oxy.
obviously,
It's
yeah, okay. Right. The pain pills. I remember the pain pills and the pain pill mills in Florida, South Florida. Now that, we see this, this issue with the kids that are dying from fentanyl poisoning, right? In your research, I just want to know if is there any corollary between that issue and the issue with the kids vaping? And what I mean by that is the cohort of the kids who are using the fentanyl the same as the cohort of the kids that are vaping? Okay, can you explain that, please? Because I don't understand.
The kids dying from fentanyl poisonings are literally all walks of life.
Okay.
All walks of life. You can go, like, even just go on YouTube and put kid overdose. You'll see all of these local news stories from the past year, and it's all walks of life. I mean, there's like probably like over 200 nonprofits that have been started over the past year alone by parents who have buried their kids. And that's, those are affluent parents. And then you've got the ones that, I mean, I'm in the Lost Voices of Fentanyl group. I've seen all the moms on it's definitely, I mean, it's definitely like, and even these kids too, it's like some kids had substance use, problems. Some of them didn't, there's one horrible story where the mom, like, her son is like passed out dead, and they're sharing it on Snapchat. And that's how she found out her son was dead. So, yeah, I mean, so when I sit there in a hearing with lawmakers like, big tobacco and vaping, I mean, you've got right now kids that are killing kids unintentionally. I mean,
yeah.
And I'm getting paid to do this crap. Talk about nicotine freaking vaping. The only thing I can do is just apologize and cry to these moms.
Well, I mean, this is the thing, and it's something I've noticed even here, is they're sitting here and they're focusing on all these like minor issues, and they're not solving anything. I mean, I could see, okay, you're focused on the minor issue because maybe you might get some kind of traction to actually solve something, right? But all these bigger issues are just getting cast aside, I guess.
I think New Zealand's going to be your next one with kids in fentanyl. Because right now the opioid crisis is in 3 countries. It's in America, Canada, and Australia.
It's very hard to get It's very hard to get opioids here. They used to sell Tylenol free over the counter here, and they pulled that a couple of years ago. The big issue that we have right now is we have meth, and we've had methamphetamine has been the biggest issue, and now MDMA and ecstasy.
Not so much the
opioids.
Sorry.
And that's something that we've been talking about for years over here. It's like, why aren't they addressing the meth problem? It's in the too hard basket. And I think that's why they're attacking vaping globally, is because the optics are good, right? Oh, we've got a problem. We're going to address the problem. This is how we're addressing
big
the
tobacco.
problem.
Vaping makes it easier because it's big tobacco. Big tobacco is already
Yeah.
found guilty. They, we already know that I mean, I call big tobacco, if you look at least in the States, they're like the pedophiles in the regulatory world. I mean, they got found guilty. They have a shame. I mean, they might as well be registering like a pedophile would have to do and stuff. I mean, which I'm at this point of, get past that. Yes, they did really crappy stuff in the 80s. So did a lot of other freaking companies and stuff. At least they're trying to like move forward to a future where they're not selling just combusted products. And wait, no, it's the government stopping them from being able to change their product portfolio into, okay, we don't want to sell these combusted products. Let's do entirely, smoke free. Nope, here comes the FDA. You can't do that.
I mean, Liana kind of nailed it in the comments. The world is having a spiritual crisis. I think everybody's lost. And I think that,
yes.
Yeah, hold on, Liana, I'll let you speak in a minute. Everybody is lost. Okay. And they're trying to find their way. And in the process of trying to find their way, they don't care who they step on in the process. And that makes it even worse. Liana, the floor is yours, my dear.
That is it, man. I've been sitting here just like cringing and trying to put my thoughts in order. Vaping, drugs, guns, violence, wars, tornadoes, all the things that are happening. That's what this generation is facing right now. It's not just that generation, but all generations. And if we look back over the history, it's way beyond just the vaping thing. And that's where the arena that I want to step into is to address the root of the issue, like Lindsey was saying. There's a root to all this. There is a root to evil. There is a root to it. So when we get to that root and searching, I could use a 12-step program because it's not a religious thing, okay, but allows people to find their own higher power. It's just going to get worse in this world. Drug use, the violence, the overdoses, these are just symptoms of root problems. Years ago in America, just using America as an example, many generations ago when they took God and the Bible out of school, all of a sudden you have no moral compass, which means if there is no God to pay attention to what you're doing, then and to judge you, and you don't believe in heaven or hell anymore, or any of that stuff, it's you do whatever you can get away with at that point, because all you have to worry about is getting caught. If you don't have that, there's no moral compass anymore. And this generation is reaching out and trying to find that moral compass again, because the generations that, since then, and how they, some of them, not everybody, has come away from beliefs that had a moral compass, that God was always watching and he always cared, and he would always direct your path as long as we stuck to him. It's gone. And so the results of that is a continual dissolving and rotting away of the family. Okay.
But Leon, what happened was, it's not all about God though, babe. Okay.
Well, and okay, that's just my opinion. That's just my opinion. That's what I say. If I use 12 steps
There's another
as an
way
example,
of looking at this. There's another
there's another way of looking at this, which is along the same vein. If you use 12 steps as an example, people use different higher powers or things like that. It's just, these are just little symptoms of what's really going on. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, it is. It's a symptom of something that's going on and what's happened.
Something that's a lot bigger. But nicotine is not the enemy. Nicotine is not the enemy.
No, it's not. I mean, and what happened was you have all these people, everybody's clamoring the right of the individual over the impact on the collective. And this is what happened. Okay. Because I remember when I was a kid, you lived in fear of upsetting your parents or pissing them off, or your teacher, or, you'd be out in the neighborhood doing whatever you were doing. It's a respect for authority. Yeah, that doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't matter what the authority is. That's what I'm trying to get to. It doesn't matter if it's, religious authority or whatever. There's
nothing. There's no structure.
And people need boundaries. Human beings need boundaries, and there are no boundaries. This is the problem.
I'm sorry, I do not have any respect for the FDA or CDC, you guys, all right? And you know what?
fine, you don't have to.
I tried for many years, all right?
That's
But
it.
okay,
But
back
that's
to
the thing.
nicotine.
There's no boundary. There's no repercussion. There's no nothing. So it doesn't matter unless you're caught. And then like even at that point,
Well, that's where it
so
goes
the
down to the
user feeling like, why
PMTA.
do we live? What
Well,
do we have to live for? You know what I
that
mean?
goes back to the PMTA stuff. I mean, technically, besides those 23 products that they have authorized, every single e-cigarette product is illegal. Why isn't the FDA going into every C-store and like confiscating all of these products? I mean, why? And also, if you're a retailer and trying to play kosher, I mean, and play by the rules, but other retailers aren't.
I know. Skip, I see you
One,
exasperated there. Go ahead.
one, a lot of retailers like C-stores haven't even heard of PMTAs. They have no clue what's going on.
I saw the
They don't know
California
if their
one.
products are legal or not. But getting
Yeah.
back to our kids, talking to parents and teachers and young people in my community, they get a lot of education on vaping. And the majority of it is not true. And these kids believe that when you vape, you're vaping embalming fluid, antifreeze, nail polish remover, that you're going to get popcorn lung and it's going to kill you. And then they go Google it and find out the opposite is true. They're not being taught about fentanyl, how dangerous it is, how little microscopic bit can kill you. And even if they were taught that, would they believe the people telling them that? How do young people even know what's true anymore?
Exactly. The experts are not expert. The experts are not, it's kind of like the news thing. Those of you from the States will understand what I'm about to say. Those of you that aren't from the States, just follow along here for a minute. Back when we were younger, you had Walter Cronkite and Harry Reasoner and Tom Brokaw giving you the news. And what they did is they just basically read the news and they didn't tell you what to think. Okay? Now you have the talking heads with a very obvious slant and skew. Fox News, I'm looking at you, okay? Telling you how you should think and how you should feel, okay? Then in our space, you have these public health experts lying. Bald-faced lying. So these kids are being told a bunch of effluent. They go to Google, like Skip said. They look it up and they're like, wait a minute, so who do you trust? I have a hard time trusting people. Now, if you're a kid, what you need is somebody that you can trust. You need an authority that you can go to and ask a question and get a straight answer. That doesn't exist anymore.
No.
Whose fault is that?
Michael Bloomberg's.
Well, yeah, on that in this context, yeah.
Well, especially when you look at the overdose and fentanyl and vaping stuff. I mean, he's only given like $40 million towards trying to fight against, people being convicted for murder charges when they sell somebody a pill. And I'm sorry. I mean, I get the whole idea of not charging them for murder because they might not go reach out to the authorities. But we treat drunk drivers the same. Like they're an alcoholic. They have a problem too. But they went and plowed somebody down with their car. That wasn't what they were trying to do.
Every action has an equal reaction. Steve Tottenham's going to understand that, okay, when he was talking about paganism, right? Every action has an equal reaction. And what's happening, I think, is now the backlash is coming. Now these kids, like Skip said, they're questioning everything. And people get angry. The adults get angry. How dare you question me? Well, actually, why shouldn't they question you? Because you're lying to them.
I question everything. I grew up with, my dad was a hippie, so I kind of grew up questioning.
Well, I questioned everything too because I was raised kind of like on George Carlin, question everything and then question it again, kind of thing.
And then question it again after that, and it's kind of like Judaism. You kind of just
raising me. I had to question everything. I had to get to the bottom of everything all by myself.
Yeah, but a lot of kids, they the No Kid Left Behind and all that new educational shit. They kind of beat that out of them, then browbeat it out of them. So kids, a lot of times,
thank you, George W.
About them, take as much money as we can out of them in all the ways that we can control, and then have them die because they're of no use to us once we get all their money. That's it. That's what
My
it comes
favorite
down
thing,
to.
you guys
Yeah.
know, I was under George W. and like, so I had to go through like health class, and that they took out, it was abstinence only. So
Oh,
like they're
God.
telling us, so they gave us like this one sheeter on like gonorrhea, and they're like, oh, ways to prevent gonorrhea. Well, they had to black out, a condom and stuff because they couldn't tell us about using condoms. I'm looking at my teacher like, this is effing stupid. I mean, seriously, kids are going to do this,
And I was just going to bring that up because when you look at like my generation, how many unwanted pregnancies and sexually transmitted diseases there were amongst children versus how low those numbers are now. And why is that? Because we accepted the fact that whether we want them to or not, kids are going to be kids. And that means they're going to experiment and they're going to do risky things. And so we taught them how to be safer when they choose to have sex.
Yeah.
And why aren't we doing that with other risky behaviors that young people do? So even if we don't want them to vape, some of our schools aren't even talking about smoking anymore. And their big thing is the numbers are so low we don't have to worry about it. And I remember years ago when the legal age in the United States in most places to use tobacco was 18.
18,
And
yeah.
a community in, this is off the top of my head, so I might have the places wrong, but I think it was Cohasset, Massachusetts. There was an article about Tobacco 21, and they interviewed a health teacher, and the smoking rates had gone up in their community. But what they had done was they stopped teaching about smoking in health class. And the children
Yes.
weren't aware of the potential danger and started smoking again.
I mean, it's anytime you push a prohibition or an abstinence, okay, it comes back to that common liability, but it also comes back to that whole taboo thing. Oh, they don't want me to know about this, so I must find out about this. I mean, it's human
I
nature,
agree.
right?
But also
Yeah, it is.
and you also just incentivize like, unregulated actors. I mean, I'm working on this op-ed right now. I'm like Donald Trump, like, well, for all as much as you hated China, you literally gave them the whole vape space when it came to disposables.
Well,
Yeah.
and even America's hatred of quote unquote big tobacco.
It's everybody. Not
Our
just America.
regulatory process is handing the industry.
Hey, I'm loving
Over
big
to big-
tobacco right now. Okay. And I'm going to sit here and say it here. I think that we are literally watching an arms race, or no, an arms race or to the moon, the way that we did it with the USSR, that like it's going to be the race to who could be the first company that 51% of their product portfolio is non-combusted products. There's no gentleman's agreement anymore. I think all of these companies are now actively fighting with each other, which should be fun to watch on the sidelines.
Yeah, but the problem with that, and I'm not saying the problem with that is because all of these people are so anti-tobacco, they don't realize they're actually handing it to them.
Exactly.
And who are they hurting? Small businesses and consumers. Because part of what has been successful about vaping and other non-combustible products is the multitude of options. And
Yeah, they
a
need choice.
person gets to tweak what they do and find what works best for them to help them not smoke. And when you take away those choices, we're still going to help people not smoke, but I predict we will help less people not smoke.
Yeah, it's true.
That would
No,
be
I
a
agree
good
with you.
survey question, though, that for the CDC to actually have done, because they ask it in the youth ones, what kind of device are you using? I'd be curious to actually have the numbers of the adult e-cigarette users and what types of devices they're using, and also like a breakdown too of the ages.
I would guess now it would be mostly disposables and
Oh, you're saying a
pre-filled
bunch
pods.
of disposables. Well, I mean, it goes back to Juul. I think disposables did help. I think that 17.3 million number that you have is a lot of people who are using disposables. Good for them, though.
Those are not smoking.
Sorry,
I mean,
Skip. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
What's the goal? What is the goal? The goal is that people aren't using combustible and unsafe oral tobacco.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people in public health that say they talk dos caras. They talk out of both sides of their face. They don't want people smoking, but they're freaking out because if people aren't smoking, they aren't getting their tax money. And the tax money funds the research.
Well, then there's a lot of money to be made on treating smoking related illnesses. And I've said it before and I will say it again. Everyone can be so afraid of big tobacco, but at least in the US and the regulatory playing field, big tobacco is a toddler, big pharma are the old guys with cigars in their mouths.
Yeah.
They run it.
Yeah. So again, it comes down to money. Ultimately, what this
everything comes down to
everything. Like I said, get everything you can out of a person. Taxes make sure that you're nice and sick, so pharma can get more money. They're all tied together. It all boils down to greed. Really sucks. Like I said, if no one
they don't create viewers, they create customers. Yeah.
Right. And the problem I have with disposables, though, not only about the lack of recycling thing, is the fact that they're all selling at 50 milligram, and I'm really glad to hear that they did help somebody. But when they are vape for the first time and someone gets hooked on that rush of that high in nicotine, you're creating a new level of nicotine addiction instead of creating a way. How does that person try it down? How does that person
actually? I can tell you, I do, because I do Nick salts myself, and actually I was talking to Skip too that I need to actually kind of get down on it because I'm like, it's just a little bit too much nicotine for me. But I went from a 55 to a 35 and didn't really even notice a difference that much.
Right, but I mean, like even lower, like. But
when I tried a 9, I was just like, this is not giving me my fix at all. I'm vaping my face off.
So is the industry that is manufacturing those, are they creating a whole new level of a fresh level of addiction? Because THR and what I've always been fighting for is for people to have a safer way to quit smoking cigarettes. And like my roommate, he went after he went to a hospital as a COPD from 44 years of smoking, he decided to stop using the pod, and he found pouches, and he goes, "This really works for me." And I'm like, right on. That's what he does, because he has PTSD and a lot of other things going on. It's a mental health issue. And so, it helps me focus too. But I want to know like how I can mix. So of course I can get down. But for the general population to be able to come along and go, how do they step down on the disposables when the stores are like, oh well, we don't order the 25s because there's just no demand for them. And then they're not there.
Well, and with none of the open system products getting a marketing order from the FDA, for the people that do eventually want to quit vaping, before in a vape shop, we would start you where you needed to start to quit smoking. And then if you wanted to quit vaping, we encouraged you to wait till you felt you weren't at risk to go back to smoking. And then we would start dropping down your nicotine level until you vaped 0 for a bit. And then what I would tell people, some people will tell you to throw away your vape so you're not tempted to vape. I told people, clean your equipment, put it away in a drawer, and if you are ever tempted to smoke again, grab your vape and start vaping and do it all over. And the products that have gotten marketing orders and this flood of disposables, all of them are high nicotine, and none of them offer the consumer the choice. So now there's this big push from these quit smoking services. Now they're quit smoking and quit vaping. And they're talking about NRTs and, nicotine replacement therapies and blah, 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 and using the same language they use about quitting smoking. And none of them talk about how you can vape and work your way down and quit vaping. So a whole new industry is being born. Studies are being done on vaping cessation programs. There's all kinds of new electronic apps out to help people quit vaping. And my concern is they're lumping it in with quitting smoking. And does that send a silent message that vaping is as bad as smoking? And how
Yes, it
many
does.
people are we going to hurt with that messaging?
Well, I mean, like Liana said, the vaping was originally set up or created for most of us to get away from combustible tobacco. And then once, these other industries, other bigger industries got involved, okay, and nic salts and things like that, we had this issue in New Zealand. And, people were up in arms with me because I was like, because I could see the addiction potential of nicotine salts at high levels, okay? There's two steps here. One is to get the people off of the combustibles and the unsafe. Okay, fine. That's step one. Now, step two should be like it was for the rest of us. And I'm saying should be, and I know it's terrible of me to say that, but should be to make sure people don't go back. And as Liana said, don't create another problem in the process. What's happening is another problem has been created in the process, which completely, well, not completely, but almost negates the whole process to begin with. So where do we go from there? I mean, I had a family member that was using those 60 milligram disposables, and they're still legal here in New Zealand. Okay. It took a good year to get them from that down to freebase 3 milligrams. And it wasn't pretty. They were
Wow, a year is
self-medicating.
impressive. I would have expected it to be a lot
Well,
longer
that's why they're
time
trying
than
to
that.
they're trying to go do away with open systems.
Right. And you've completely negated it. That's what I'm saying. It negates it, Liana. Because how can you titrate yourself down?
Yep,
Exactly.
that's what Leanna's saying.
You don't have control.
And I don't
And
have
that's
a problem.
unfair.
I don't have a problem with high nicotine products being on the market, and I think they should be. When I worked with people that smoked 2, 3, 4 packs a day, the products that we had with open systems, some of them were just not high enough nicotine.
Mm-hmm.
And even though they vaped, and like a lot of people dual used, they never could get past that dual use. So that higher nicotine products is what some of those people need. And not medically correct, I suppose, but I vape high nicotine because it helps my ADHD, and low nicotine didn't.
But if you remember when I started anyway, I mean, the highest you could get was 48 milligram freebase. And usually you'd start off with that and then you'd bounce back down to 24 and then you'd bounce to 18 and then you'd keep going down. Okay, that's the thing that's been removed. Now, Rog has a question for you, Linz.
Yeah, I saw
do
that.
you collect? Yeah, answer that, please, if you would.
Lindsay, collect youth use for all states, and if so, certain states that withhold data more than others. Well, yeah, like, okay, Montana's been really transparent. They put out their youth risk behavior data back last summer for 2021. Connecticut and Vermont have been really cagey, I guess is the way that I would describe that one. New Hampshire's survey, when they give us our results, like it goes back to the smoking thing. Like they gave me the number of kids that were vaping, but they didn't give me the number of kids that were using combustible cigarettes. I don't even think, and actually I had to go through the questionnaire. They didn't even ask the number of kids that were using cigarettes. So, I mean, it's all wonky, and I still, if you want to do some research for me, and I know I asked Skip, and we were trying to figure out how these state health departments work. Are they actually under the CDC? Like, I know I started looking at state health departments back with the vaping lung injuries because the CDC wasn't being transparent, and some of the state health departments were being more transparent. Actually, I do believe Connecticut was a little bit better, that they were giving us data like showing that it was people using THC versus nicotine. Like they were giving us those numbers versus some health departments that were just like, nanya. So how I would describe that one. But it's kind of just BS, especially when you're reading testimony from them. I mean, these are supposed to be non-biased public health, taxpayer funded public health agencies. And they're in control of the data.
Yeah, but again, I think that they're hiding, like you said, Linz, they're hiding a lot of data because it proves that there is no epidemic.
Well, I don't even think it's vaping at this point right now. You have a mental health crisis that I think you're going to see some of these numbers that are just like through the freaking roof in some of these states. Hawaii, interesting enough, their kids reported less feelings of sadness and depression. Go figure. If you live in Hawaii, you're less likely to be depressed.
The parents are, though, because it's real expensive to live there. But yeah. But yeah, there is that issue. So I mean, that's kind of bringing back to the main topic here is, how do we use data and how do we use statistics? We can't really use a lot of them because they're not complete and they're not objective and they're not something that really is valid in the way that it should be. So it brings us back to what we have, which none of the other government officials have or government departments have. All we have is ourselves and our knowledge and our experiences. And the problem is obviously that they don't want to listen to us because they're saying, oh, it's not scientific and it's not peer reviewed, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't matter. I think the squeaky wheel gets the oil. So
Well,
that's why I think
say the same messaging. We need to get on the same messaging. I mean, I think there's a lot more power in the testimonials of people, adult users going up and even just being quick. You don't have to go and give a whole elaborate speech. You just need to be like, hey, my name is, want to let you know that I use this product to quit my 25-year cigarette habit. Nothing else worked. And I'm vaping this flavor. That has a lot of power in themselves because I'm sitting there at hearings. I'm hearing from my mom who's talking in an anecdote. You're not an anecdote when it's actually you. Do not get deterred when they try to sit here and say it's an anecdote and actually get pissed off when they come up after you and, oh, that's just anecdotes. No, lady at CTFK, I'm not an anecdote. This is my story. You're the one regurgitating somebody else's story. That is an anecdote.
Yep. Exactly.
Own your story.
Exactly.
That's it. Own your freaking story. Actually, that should be our motto. We need to reclaim the vaping story. It's not youth vaping. It's adults who quit smoking.
Yeah. Bring it back. Bring it back. Skip, thoughts?
No, I'm good. We're about out of time. And I don't mean to rush us, but I work at 3 a.m. and it's my bedtime.
I understand.
Steve and Nancy are the party poopers today.
Yeah, well, the old ladies are the party poopers. Sorry, deal with it. Pass the Geritol. Liana, do you have anything that you would like to add to this?
I would apologize for my tangent, but I can't because I would be saying that I was lying. But
No, don't apologize.
I want to wish all you ladies the absolute best and continuing on in your fight. I was just making my formal goodbye, everybody. This is my last advocating show. I'm involved in some other things now. Obviously, that's where my passions have been. And I'm going to dive in the root while you guys attack all these outside issues and keep fighting for THR. And I love you so much. That's it.
We love you. Thank you for all your work with us.
All right.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Linz. Any final thoughts?
Be Andy Dufresne, people. I mean, that's seriously. I mean, when you after 2 years of writing your lawmakers and you finally get that $500 that it's a joke and everything, have the tenacity to be like, I'm going to write them 2 letters now.
Yeah. So
it's a what is it? What is it? It's a long distance match, not a relay match or whatever.
Oh, it's a marathon, not a dash.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. Yeah, or whatever. Yeah.
A dash. Old school term, dash.
Dash. Okay,
Right,
it's a marathon, not a dash.
Skip's falling asleep, guys. We got to go.
Now my parents just came in, so.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us today out there in the internet land. Thank you, ladies. And
thank you, ladies.
Some of you next month.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Ciao.